Welcome to this episode of DIY3DTech.com. In this episode, we're going to be talking about the ramifications of air quality in different filaments. So, as you guys recall, an episode or so back, I purchased this air quality meter. So I've been doing a lot of testing on different filaments, and what I plan on doing, and as you see this magic sheet here, is I'm going to take a look at these various filaments, kind of compare them to this air quality. And actually, frankly, I've gone through most of the list already, but I'm going to devote one episode to each filament to kind of talk about that, what information I've gotten, and what I feel it means. So when I say that, what I feel it means, I want to back up a little bit. So I'm not a doctor, I'm not a medical professional, I don't work in the medical field, and this is not medical advice, nor am I pretending to distribute medical advice. What I'm simply doing is sharing empirical information which I've gathered from my tests in this meter. Now, my tests are not double-blind and super scientific and sanctioned by the Surgeon General or anything like that, but they are very practical tests. So as we take a look at what are the tests that I'm doing, is what I've set up is, unfortunately, this meter does not have any type of external data logging. So what I've done is I've set this up inside my DaVinci's for many of the filaments. Obviously it's contained, chassis. And I've run through the filaments. I'll talk a little bit more in detail about the process as we go on. However, I've set up a time-lapse camera to record a frame every 2 seconds, so I can go through this and I can take a look at where my peaks are as I, run back and forth in a video editor. And then what I've done is I've recorded those peaks here. Now, keep in mind as we're talking about this, we have obviously peak and a valley. Now, one of the things I can share with you, I've pretty much seen across the board, is that there is a ramp up and a ramp sort of to an average. Now, what it appears, and again, you kind of see this mess down here, so I've gone from testing just let's melt plastic to let's deform some parts to let's make an okay part. And one of the things that I've noticed is the closer that the plastic is to the heated bed, the more it outgasses. As it moves away from the heated bed, the less it outgasses. Now, the bed testings I've done have been all at 100 C for the bed and have been around 235, 240, depending upon the material, for the actual hot end. And again, it seems to be that's a norm. So, interesting norm. Also does not seem to be a difference which surprised me a little bit, if I melt something just like this, let this go into a total failure state, or if I let something print totally through correctly. Doesn't seem to make a difference. Because I tried also to relate it back to surface area, and I didn't see a good relation back to surface area. Because where I think a lot of the magic is happening is, from the plastic passing through its glass state into, as it comes out of the extruder, and past, obviously, the glass state. I know everybody's going to pick on me for that one. But as it passes through that state, and there are particles that become aerosolized, and we'll talk about that in a second. So now, what I want to talk about here, I'm going to back up a quick second. So I'm going to run that video up in the corner of the time lapse of this test, so you can see it go up, you can see it run through, and roughly how I did things. So I've normalized the object on a half-failed object here intentionally, because I wanted exposure and surface area. I wanted correctness as far as it building up the stanchions and moving away from the bed and a bunch of other things. Now, what am I measuring in this? I'm measuring formaldehyde, I'm measuring total volatile organic compounds, I'm measuring particles, 2.5 micron particles, and I'm measuring 10 micron particles. So, when I start taking a look at ABS, what do I find? I find actually a fair amount of formaldehyde being released. Now, this is the peak, and again, I'm using reference numbers here, and you can argue the reference numbers. I took the base reference numbers that have been published, for example, by Green Building, in EPA and others, where the first signs of problem will occur. And then they usually have staged, okay, so if it goes, from 0.1 to 0.5, certain different things happen. I just said, let's take the basis of where stuff will start and go from there. Now, again, this is the peak, and remember, these are continuous flows. So each one of these prints 1 hour in time, so 1 hour of exposure. And so if you're going to do a 24-hour print, you're going to multiply this by 24 times, right? Or what's going to be released volumetrically into your environment. So again, if we come back and we take a look, and I'll do the actual overlay of the spreadsheet so it's a little bit easier for you guys to read, is I'm at 0.069 for formaldehyde, which I thought was pretty high. Now you got to remember, a number of things contribute to formaldehyde, the existence of it, various chemical compounds. I'm not going to get into all the details of that. Just obviously know that exists. You can Google it and find it out on your own. But you are being exposed to formaldehyde when you're printing ABS. Right there it is. Meter showed it, and again, you can see it, following through. Now, again, there does seem to be a ramp up, a ramp down, and then an average. And I'll give you a little hint to the upcoming episodes. The pattern basically repeats itself. So this seems to be a common denominator in the operation of 3D printing. The other piece, total volatile organic compounds. I will spit that out. A little bit difficult. So what we have here is we've actually exceeded, basically the minimums. And so we hit 0.635. So released a lot of volatile organic compounds. I was actually somewhat surprised by this in actually such a short period of time. But here's the measurements. The other piece, now tying this all together, as we're seeing the formaldehyde, we're seeing the VOCs and that kind of stuff, these have to be aerosolized in some sort of way of particles, and so this is the other thing that I found interesting is we again exceeded the PM 2.5 or micron particles, and then also we see the 10 micron particles. Now, one of the pieces that keep in mind, the 10 micron particle is pretty large. The 2.5 micron particle is actually pretty small, and the small particles are what, at least from my opinion, again, I'm not a medical professional, this is not medical advice, that you want to be more concerned with, because these are the ones that are going to get into your alveoli of your lungs and that kind of stuff, and are going to be or potentially, let's say, problematic to one's health. So again, not health advice, but if I'm looking at something that I want to stay away from, I really want to stay away from the smaller particles. So from looking at this, you can again see long exposure to ABS is not a good thing. I mean, it's empirical evidence here. I've been playing the video up there. You see a constant release of this. Now, the important thing too is to keep in mind that the particle material is a constant stream. As the printer's printing, it's releasing more and more, and air is moving out of the chamber, being replaced and with new air, because there's actually a fan inside here that circulates it, and you see it go up and you see it go down throughout this. So it's continually producing these particles, these especially small particles, and they're entering your home's environmental envelope. Now, most modern homes are fairly airtight, and especially the wintertime. It's wintertime here in Michigan. And, this stuff is going to linger around for a while. It runs that potential at least. So I think it's very important that we educate ourselves on what the risks are of these things are. Now, again, I'm not a doctor, not dispensing medical advice. You can research the health effects of all these. I'm not going to go into that. I just want to show that exists. And I also believe this is one of the big reasons that, ventilation, especially with ABS, is so important. And again, if you're doing, larger prints. Now, if you're doing something small with say, a Monoprice Mini and PLA, that's pretty innocuous. It doesn't have large surface areas. You aren't printing for 24 hours. But if you're doing this type of stuff with ABS, you are running these risks here of exposure to what I'm showing here, or on the screen here, or however I'm pointing to it. Anyways, wanted to share that with you. So now, again, what we're going to be doing is I'm going to do one of these for, the next one's going to be hips, and then after hips, we're going to do PET-G, and then we're going to do TPU, and then we're going to do nylon. Because I want to hit the major ones. I got PLA in there. And we're going to have to do some of them in a little bit different ways, because I can't do the PLA on the Da Vinci's. So anyways, hopefully you found this video interesting and informative. And if you did, hey, please give it a thumbs up. Please share this with others in the 3D printing community. I think it's important that we become educated on what we're exposing to both ourselves and our family in this, and also determining what plastics may be better than others. I want to stay away from the word safer because I don't want to, again, dispense medical advice saying one's safer than the other. Again, I want to give you the empirical information. You make the decision for yourself. But I've looked at this. I have never been a big fan of ABS. I do print with it, but I always use ventilation when printing with it. And now I have the empirical evidence that backs up that that's a good idea. So hopefully, again, you found this interesting. If you did, don't forget the swag shop up there. Don't forget the subscribe button over there. Again, I'm always looking for constructive comments down below. What are you thinking? And hey, catch you guys in the next video. Cheers.
Please click like below and subscribe to the channel to keep up to date on all